Hello, I'm Charlie from the Way Biblical Fellowship. This week we studied the Torah portion, Ray A. It's all about seeing things from Jehovah's perspective. We looked at what it is that defines us, had a little look into what it means to be in a relationship, what it means to worship Jehovah, the difference between his way of doing things and the way that all the other religions of the world would have you follow after their gods. Then we had a part 2 where we looked at what the Torah says about false prophets, and also what the Torah says about poor people. So I hope you'll watch both parts, by the way. Thank you. Cheers then. The Torah portion this week is Re'eh, and it means to behold. Okay. Broadly speaking, I can't believe how bright that projector is. It's amazing. How brilliant. Broadly speaking, a person's observance of the precepts of Torah could fall into one of 3 categories: either plain obedience, intellectual appreciation, or vision. Now, at this level, one does not merely appreciate the value of keeping the Torah's precepts, one sees or re'ehs it, i.e. the necessity and positive results of observing the mitzvahs become as clear and as self-evident as seeing a physical object with one's eyes. The command to see means to not only open your eyes, but to open your mind, and it means to grasp reality in the fullest sense. Okay, we need divinely enhanced vision to see through and beyond the obstacles and seductions which confront us to what is really going on. We need eyes that can re'eh, i.e. behold what the consequences of each of the alternative actions we could choose would turn out to be. Okay, last week we learned that Shamar was more than just obeying. Obeying is all about self-interest. It's a combination of fear of falling from favour or being punished, and or a hope of reward. Whereas Shamarin, on the other hand, flows out of intimately knowing Jehovah and being totally engrossed in him. Obeying is for soldiers and slaves, Shamarin is for lovers. Obeying is a work of the flesh, Shamaring is a lifestyle. Okay, understanding reading the Torah that when a form of the word re'eh is used in the text, it does not refer merely to the casual opening of your natural eyes. It means to see the thing in question from Jehovah's perspective. Now, realize that Jehovah always looks first and hardest for the potential for good in whatever he is looking at. Take, for example, Moshe, a murderer with a speech impediment, or Paul, a boring speaker who persecuted Yeshua's disciples. He saw the potential in both of them, didn't he? I mean, he could have written Paul. He was killing people, and he was such a boring speaker. Somebody fell out the window, didn't he, and died. But the Lord saw the potential in him. Okay, Philippians 2:3 says this: "Let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than themselves." Look for the good in others. Look for the potential in others. Sometimes I find people have a tendency to jump to the worst conclusion, and they don't give the other person the benefit of the doubt. Always try and think more highly of the other person. Don't just naturally assume that they meant to upset you or they were being funny with you. Maybe they weren't. Don't always do that. Esteem other people higher than yourself. Look for the potential in them, the good in them. Don't go looking for the negative. Got as an example this lady, Susan Boyle. She revealed how she was bullied at school and beaten by teachers who did not understand learning difficulties. Nobody saw the potential in her, did she? And she went on a talent show, and everyone looked at her and laughed and thought, look at the state of her. Nobody saw the potential in her. And then the next thing you know, there she is. She looks a bit different, doesn't she? And she's got albums out, and people have realised actually there was a lot of potential in this woman. We just completely missed it. Are we in danger of doing the same thing with the people we bump into in our lives? With each other even? Do we look as Jehovah looks and see the potential? Okay, seeing or re'ehing things from Jehovah's perspective and not our own limited, short-sighted, self-centered skew turns everything on its head. I like this. Mr. Magoo's just about to drink some hot sauce or go off the edge of a cliff. Are we a bit like this? Because our vision isn't quite the same as the Lord's. We've got to see things from his perspective. Okay, Mr. Magoo's limited vision ensured that he was constantly faffing up. Half the time he didn't even know what danger he was in. Are we a bit the same? Okay, often we find it difficult to see the potential in people and the opportunity in situations. As you can see, this gentleman here is not very impressed with these two. He doesn't see any potential at all. Do you remember them? Kevin and Perry? He's got a good beard, hasn't he? Let's move on. William Bullock says this: Jehovah sees a wonderful life-enhancing lesson in every failure. He sees the seeds of wisdom and empathy growing in every heartbreak. He sees a redemptive testimony of his goodness emerging from every tragedy. He sees a Shulamite in every harlot. He sees a glorious bride in every selfish shrew. He sees a prince or princess in every filthy street urchin. And he sees a prophet, priest or teacher in every prodigal son or daughter. That hits home for me because I was a bit of a prodigal son, wasn't I? He says a potentially devoted spouse, father or mother in every person who soils his soul by engaging in fornication, adultery or homosexual liaison. And he sees a potential hero and life-giver in every person who participates in perversions like murder, abortion, pornography, child molestation and human trafficking. Okay, now on the heels of Shamar, in the words of Jehovah, the first thing we're supposed to do is to see the stunning reality that our words and actions in this world, like our covenant partners, have spiritual as well as physical significance. And with divinely enhanced vision, we also see that the determining factor as to whether what flows from our words and actions into the world around us is for blessing or for curse, is whether and to what extent we Shamar Jehovah's Torah. Okay, it's not about being a do-gooder. It's really not. It's not about being the world's greatest philanthropist. It's about whether we Shamar his word, walking in his commandments to do the good works that we're called to. Not works of the flesh, not dead works, but the good works we're called to. Matthew 5:16-17. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. He says this just before he says, think not that I am come to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill, to fully preach. Okay, walking in his commands, walking in his ways is the good works that he's on about. Ephesians 2:10 says this: for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus, unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. Deuteronomy 11:26. Okay, we're going to begin the Torah portion here. It says, behold, the word is re'eh, and it's in its singular form. Okay, I set before you, the you there is in its plural form. Okay, this day a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you this day, and a curse if you will not obey the commandments of the Lord your God, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other gods which ye have not known. Okay, a more literal translation of the first bit would be, you see, I set before all of you a blessing and a curse. Okay, there seems to be something that we as individuals can be aware of as more and more is revealed to us in our Torah journey. As individuals, we can begin to see how the plan of Jehovah is to bless all of Israel who choose to keep the commandments. Right? There's a theme going through this. The community is important, and we'll see later as we go on, we're going to start to look at the Hebraic way of thinking and how you define yourself. Community is important, so bear that in mind when we go through this. You, as an individual, see, I have set before all of you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, now the word before in English was if, but it should actually be when. A blessing when, which is a little bit more positive, isn't it? When you all Shamar the commandments of Jehovah your Elohim, which I command you today, and the curse if you all do not Shamar the commandments of Jehovah your Elohim, but turn aside from the way which I command you today, to go after other gods which you have not known. Okay, so most all English Bibles read, if you will obey and if you do not obey, but they're two completely different Hebrew words. Okay, it should be when you all Shamar, and that's a prophetic statement, which is good, isn't it? Okay, in other words, we can be sure that there's a time coming in the future when corporate Israel will Shamar the commandments of Jehovah, which is good. Also, the word today, yom, in Hebrew, can just mean this day, or it can have prophetic significance, as in Malachi 4:5. Behold, I send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day, as in yom again of Jehovah. Okay, so this day is a prophetic word as well. Moses is telling individuals to have the spiritual eyes to see that there will come a day in the future when the blessings and curses will apply to you, all of Israel. Yes, you can be blessed as an individual, but it is also very important to be part of the body of Israel. For now, as an individual, align yourself with that part of Israel that attempts to keep the commandments of Jehovah. And I've put a picture up there of the loner. It was funny because before I studied this, I was talking to JP saying, I like being on my own a lot, you know. And I know I've got a problem with it, you know, I'm being this loner. I know, and I'm sure the Lord's going to challenge me on it. And as I'm studying the Torah portion this week, it's like, oh yeah, right, yeah. And, you know, I had visions of being this guy who just wanders off with the dog and all that. And just like, ta-da, everybody. The Lord says it's different, doesn't he? Let's consider the choice of the blessing or the curse. The same blessing and curse of Deuteronomy is spelled out with a bit more detail later on. In Deuteronomy 30:19-20, it says, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. He goes on to say, therefore choose life, that you and your offspring may live, loving Jehovah your God, obeying his voice, holding fast to him, for he is your life and length of days, that you may dwell in the land that Jehovah swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, to give them. Okay, so we see the choice equates to life and death. So we've got associations, we've got, does this work? Yeah, blessing, obedience, life, Jehovah. Curse, disobedience, death, separation from God. Okay, Adam and Eve were given a choice. They were able to eat of every tree in the garden, including the tree of life, except the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eating of this tree would cause them to die. They were also given a choice of life and death. Okay, partaking of the tree of life brought eternal life. Now, Solomon tells us that the Torah, which is associated with wisdom, is a tree of life. Proverbs 3:18, she is a tree of life to those who take hold of her, and happy are all who retain her. Okay, Yeshua is the word of Jehovah made flesh. In him is life, like the tree of life. So we've got the following connections. Life is the tree of life, which is Torah, which is Yeshua. Yeshua and the Torah are inextricably linked. Okay, now when we make the choice to follow Yeshua, which leads to life and blessings, we must put aside our own impression of what he is like and discover the truth about him through the Torah. Put away all your preconceived, he's just lovely, isn't he lovely? Oh, he's lovely. The Torah is what describes who he is. Deception is easy to accept. Just as Adam and Eve fell into the trap set by the evil one, the deceiver always presents us with a God that fits into our own perception of what the Almighty should be like. He tickles our ears, he tells us what we want to hear. Again, this week in our parsha, with more not to deviate from the word. Chapter 12, verse 32, it says, whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it, because if you do, you'll end up with some kind of a monstrosity like this. Since Yeshua is the living word, any change in the word leads to a perverted picture of the Messiah. When we live our life in accordance with a corrupted word, others are no longer able to see Yeshua through the witness of our obedience. Making the choice to alter the word leads to curse and death, not to blessing and life. So if you want to get back to the garden and the tree of life, then check the following verse. Revelation 22:14 says, blessed are those who do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. Okay, one thing we need to reiterate, he is the husband, not us. He leads and we follow. Torah very clearly pictures Jehovah, not us, as the stronger partner in the covenant relationship. So all these people who think that they can have God in their pocket, forget about it. That is not the way that it works. Okay, William Bullock put it like this. He said, Torah pictures our lives as an intimate dance of love in which Jehovah leads and we follow, and in which we do what we see him doing and move only in response to his cues. The husbandry approach, where basically we take charge and just expect Jehovah, God, to go along with it, The husbandry approach, on the other hand, not only says that we lead the dance, but that we also choose the dance hall, which is designed to our tastes, not his. We choose the orchestra, consisting of people who make us feel good or dazzle us with talent. We choose the song, and we choose the beat. It's not the way it is. He's the husband, he's in charge, he leads, we follow. His pathway is well lit and its boundaries are clearly defined, but it's a pathway of absolute unconditional surrender. The second pathway is the exact opposite. It is the way of choice for self-willed souls, the I did it my way crowd. Okay? Now, here's a chap, Anton LaVey. Okay, here he is with Sammy Davis Jr. He was the founder of the Church of Satan and the origin of modern Satanism. He actually said that the most satanic song of the 20th century was this song, I Did It My Way. Because the person who's with him there is Marilyn Manson, just to show that his influence continued. And obviously, the music industry is, generally speaking, doesn't bring any glory to God whatsoever. Goes on to say, verse 29, it shall come to pass when Jehovah thy God hath brought thee in unto the land whither thou goest to possess it, that thou shalt put the blessing upon Mount Gerizim and the curse upon Mount Ebal. And are they not on the other side of Jordan by the way where the sun goeth down in the land of the Canaanites, which dwell in the champaign over Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? Where it says this, the plains of Moreh, if you actually look at the translation, the word Zilaun, and it's been translated either as terebinth or great tree of Moreh, which actually means teacher as well. And this freaked me out because this sent me on a bit of a journey this week. This is the exact place where Jehovah promised the land to Abraham. Okay? This is the place where we're talking, Shechem. These are the two mountains here. There's like a natural amphitheatre here. This valley is formed a natural amphitheatre. The speaker's voice could be heard on both hillsides, and likewise the shouts of a crowd on Gerizim could be heard on Ebal and vice versa. Okay? What they were going to do is shout the curses from this mountain and the blessings from this mountain as they travelled in. This is the very place where Abraham was promised the land. It's insane. When I started looking into it, I was just blown away. Now, Joshua actually built an altar on Mount Ebal as well, which was discovered in 1980, which dates back to, some say, the Iron Age 1 to 1220, 1000 BC. Fits in with the time period anyway. But that's the altar is actually still there. And there's a map of it. There's Shechem between the two mountains there. And just to give you an idea, see what they did is they went Jericho, then they went to Ai, and then they went to Shechem. Okay, and there's a big tree. I just put a picture in of a big tree, and I don't know why. That's because I was so excited about the idea of this tree, I just couldn't help it. And just to prove it, Genesis 12:5-7 says, and Abraham took Sarah his wife and Lot his brother's son, all the substance that they had gathered and the souls they had gotten in Haran, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came, and Abram passed through the land unto the place of Shechem, unto the plain. Same word, Elam, unto the great tree of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land. And Jehovah appeared unto Abraham and said, unto thy seed I give this land. And there he builded an altar unto Jehovah, who appeared unto him. And at the end of Joshua's life, the covenant was ratified again. And this is what Joshua does in the same place. He took a large stone and set it there under the oak, also translated as terebinth, that was by the sanctuary of Jehovah. 800 years had elapsed since Abraham first built an altar under the Shechem oak tree. Interestingly, Jacob also, he buried all the strange gods under the same oak tree, but we'll do a study on this because it's quite a fascinating thing. The Shechem is a really bizarre place. It's also where the house of Israel split from the house of Judah. Okay, let's continue anyway. For ye shall go over Jordan to go in to possess the land which Jehovah your God giveth you, and you shall possess it and dwell therein, and you shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. Okay, chapter 12. When they enter the land, the first thing they are told to do is eradicate the places of worship of the former inhabitants. In fact, they are to destroy the very name of these gods. And why is this so important? Because this land where they're going is his promised land, and they are to establish a place for his name to dwell. A few weeks later, Joshua goes a step further and asks the Israelites to put away all the foreign gods from among their very midst, exactly like Jacob did. okay, and clean up their hearts as they make the choice to serve him. Okay? This doing away with idolatry is no different than the instructions given to the new believer who also must put away idolatry in order to provide a place for Jehovah's name to dwell. And there's the picture again of Jacob, and they were putting all their household gods and burying them under this tree that just keeps coming up. Okay, but we'll look into that another time. Putting away idolatry is the only way of returning or teshuvah to Jehovah. Okay, so what's idolatry? Colossians 3:5-10 says this: Mortify there your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. These things are idolatry in the Lord's eyes. For which things' sake the wrath of God cometh upon the children of disobedience, in which ye also walked sometime when ye lived in them. But now ye also put off all these: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy communication out of your mouth. Isn't it odd? That just falls away from you when you come to the Lord anyway. Them things, you don't even speak the same, do you? It just kind of falls away from you. Lie not one to another, seeing that you've put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. Okay, chapter 12 says this: These are the statutes and judgments which you shall observe to do in the land, which Jehovah God of thy fathers giveth thee to possess it all the days that you live upon the earth. You shall utterly destroy all the places wherein the nations which ye shall possess serve their gods, upon the high mountains and upon the hills, and under every green tree. And you shall overthrow their altars and break their pillars, burn their groves with fire, and you shall hew down the graven images of their gods, and destroy the names of them out of that place. You shall not do so unto Jehovah your God. He makes it quite clear. So Moshe's point here is also not simply that we're forbidden to engage in the abominable Canaanite behavior like offering human sacrifices, burning babies in the fire. His point goes much, much deeper than that. He is telling us that we're to reject the entire format and concept of worship the people of the nations of Canaan followed. Okay, so it's not just this. And it's not just wearing fish-shaped hats like the Pope does and all this that we're to get rid of. He hates the whole lot. The whole concept of their worship, the Lord does not like. Okay, it's a small thing to say we don't do child sacrifices. We live in a society that does, by the way, and I apologise if anyone's offended by the picture, but I think you should be, actually. We don't have priests walking around in pagan costumes. We don't. But have we really distanced ourselves from all the ways of the Canaanites? And I look at pictures like this, and this is just like their style of worship. Okay? As is all this crazy nonsense that has gone on, sadly, in the name of Jehovah, in churches that call themselves Christian. Okay? These are pictures taken from the Toronto Blessing. Okay, so let us ask ourselves, do we worship Jehovah after the pattern established in Torah? Or have we merely taken the name of Jehovah and Lord Jesus, superimposed one or both of them onto a pagan local altar with local priesthood religious system designed by man in the exercise of false religion? Okay, so what am I getting at? How do other nations worship their gods? Okay, the procedure, it turns out, is virtually universal. Okay, first of all, they have built themselves an altar to serve their locality. Second, they've elevated some of their number to clergy status. Thirdly, they've established convenient located public worship centres for religious services conducted by those who've been elevated to clergy status, at which worship centres they build sacred shrines or temples decorated with religious art. These are all the things that the pagans do. Okay, so what am I getting at? Remember that the pagans were interested only in appeasing their gods, keeping them at arm's length, so that they could carry on with their lives uninterrupted. Which is, when I look at the Sunday churches, it's just, and I've been in them, I get the impression that's exactly what they're all about. This idea of, well, I've been to church now, I've done my thing, right, we're off the pub, is it still open? I've done me bit, I've appeased God now, I'll just go back to living my life. Just, yeah, I'm one of his, I've said the prayer. Are you with me? It's all about appeasing God and keeping him at a distance. Let's pause for thought. Could it be that instead of training our families in true moment by moment, day by day, walking with the creator of the universe, as Moshe taught us to do in Deuteronomy 6:4-9, we have embraced elements of a Canaanite-like religious system? What do Jehovah's people do? How do they worship their God? Is this where it's at? Okay, remember, worship is not singing and dancing. Worship is your life and how you live your life. Interestingly, let's just read Deuteronomy 6:4-9. Give us an idea of what his people are supposed to look like. Hear, O Israel, Shamar, O Israel. Jehovah our God, Jehovah is one. You shall love Jehovah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand. In other words, the things that you do, and they shall be as a frontlet between your eyes, the things that you think. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. In other words, your homes are going to declare my word. You're going to live according to my word. Every aspect of your life is to be affected by my word. You're going to think about it, you're going to do it, you're going to talk about it when you get up and when you go to bed, the whole time. That's what it's about. Not going to church once a week, doing your bit, and then going off and doing whatever you want. Do you come to church services, listen to sermons and sing along just to keep Jehovah at peace so that you can go back on with your life unhindered by an angry God? Because if you do, you're missing the point. It's really not what it's about. A quick lesson in Hebrew thought and a look at community and a look at who you are. This fascinated me when I started looking at this. Okay, Matthew 22:36-40 says this. Teacher, which is the great commandment in the Torah? And he said, you shall love Jehovah your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Okay, we've just heard that in Deuteronomy. This is the first and great commandment. A second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the Torah and the prophets. So Yeshua quotes the Shamar and he says that loving one another is as important. Loving Jehovah and loving your neighbor are inextricably linked. Okay? 1 John 5:2-3 says this, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not burdensome. See that loving God and loving each other, they're linked. John 13:35, by this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Okay, I want to start thinking this idea of community now. Okay, let's have a little look at this. What does it mean to be a man? Okay, the Hebrew word is ish, right? Ish is a verb and not a noun in Hebraic thought, which is a bit odd, isn't it, for us to get our heads around. A man is the summary of all his relationships. Your identity is tied to your relationships. You're not defined by how strong you are, how nice your suit is, how cool you are, how much money you've got, okay? You're a verb, you're not a noun, okay? And a man is the summary of all his relationships. Your identity is tied to the relationships that you have, okay? Being a man is about what you do, and it's about the sum of your relationships. So what does this mean? It means that you're not a husband because you've got a marriage certificate. You're a husband by way of how you treat your wife and the relationship that you have with her, okay? Your spouse gives you the opportunity to be a husband through the relationship. Okay, just as children give you the opportunity to be a father through relationship. Okay, you are a child of the living God, not because you say you are or you think you are, but only if that relationship exists. Okay, if church services are about doing your God thing and then getting on with the rest of your life during the rest of the week, then sadly you have a Canaanite mentality, and consequently, because the relationship is not there, because you're only interested in keeping Jehovah at a distance, you are not a child of God. Yeah? You are a believer because of the way you treat Jehovah, not because you say you are or you go to church. If there's no relationship, then forget it. It's a no-go. Yeah? In Hebraic thought, you're defined by what you do. If you say you're a golfer but you never play golf, then you're actually not a golfer. Okay, I don't know why, but I like this cartoon. I'm afraid your son is not very intelligent, so I suggest he takes up golf. I don't know. If you say, I don't know why that tickles me, it just does. If you say you are a follower of Yeshua and don't follow him, then you're not a follower. Okay, that doesn't take a big stretch of thinking, does it? Okay, remember, if there is no relationship, that it matters not what you say or you think or you do. Relationship exists, by the way, in actions. Okay, that's why Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Okay? In other words, walk where he walked, step where he stepped. Okay? If I am going to follow him, I'm going to go to the places he went. I'm going to do the things that he did. Okay? 1 John 2:6 says, whoever abides in him ought to walk in the same way as he walked. It's the only way you can follow him. It's the only way the relationship exists as well. Now, let's talk about love. Love, I have, in Hebrew. And I had to get the dog in, didn't I, again, and the monkey. We all know the story of the dog and the monkey. It's very lovely. You don't know the story of the dog and the monkey? Shall I tell it very quickly? This monkey was brought to a sanctuary, right? It had been maltreated all its life. It was refusing to eat, it was depressed, it was on its last legs, it was on its way out. The keepers couldn't do anything whatsoever to get this monkey to even get the will to live. It was a complete no-hoper, they were just waiting for it to die. The keeper came in one day and he brought his dog. The monkey saw the dog and a little friendship arose from the monkey and the dog. The monkey got back on his feet again and they did absolutely everything together, and I've got a big list of pictures. They even go swimming together and everything. Just they love each other basically. It's great. Okay, love, or ahav in Hebrew, 3 letters: Aleph, Hey, and Beit. Okay, Hey. The first time Hey begins the root of a word in Torah is where the brothers are in Egypt and Joseph tells his servants to give them bread. The word is have in the Aramaic and it means to give. Hey means to give. Now love, Aleph, Beit, got give stuck right in the middle in it. This is why the more you love, the more you give. Love is about being in a state of giving. You give to the point that the other person becomes part of you. You say, I'm going to make you part of me by giving you so much of myself. Then I love you just as I love myself, because you will be me, because I will have given so much of myself to you. 2 becomes 1 by giving. Do you get it? Okay. What's the best thing to give as well, by the way? The Aleph, which always represents God. It's best to give spiritually. It's best to give in a way that enables that person to know Jehovah better. Okay? People think love is about themselves. It's not. It's about giving. A mother loves her child more than the child loves the mother, because the mother gives more. Yeah? We say, I love you. You make me so happy. You're my dream come true. Okay? And it's all about us, isn't it? Me, make me happy. But a man says, I love fish, okay? What he's actually saying is, I love me. If he really loved fish, he would have thrown the fish back. Yeah? Okay. Bearing this in mind, let's go back to thinking about relationships. Yeah? Okay. Let's have a look at Adam and Eve. 2 luckiest people in the world who got to have a pet tiger. I love that picture. Adam, man, and then a woman. Okay. Adam is the name for man that comes from the Hebrew word Adamah, the ground from whence he came. Okay. This is the way it works in the scriptures. In Genesis 2:23, we have the introduction of the woman. Yeah. Adam calls the woman Isha. Okay, until this point, every time man is mentioned in scripture, the word Adam is used. But from here on in, we have the word Ish for man. Okay, so he's Adam, he's Adam, he's Adam, man, Adam. Whatever you see it in the scripture, man. Until this point, man is always Adam. Okay, but then woman comes along, he calls her Isha. From then on, man is known as Ish. Okay, what's the point of this? Ish and Isha are relationship words. They are tied together. You can't have one without the other. Okay, the identity of Adam is changed because of the woman, because of the relationship. You with me? All of a sudden, she comes along and he's no longer regarded as man, Adam. He's now Ish, because she's Isha. Are you with me? Okay, his identity is changed because of the relationship. We are defined by our relationships, okay? I exist in us, not in me. That's the mentality. Okay, Skip Mohan says this: the woman was there to teach Adam how to be in voluntary submission to her so that he can learn how to be in voluntary submission to Jehovah. He also learns about voluntary union, which is the basis for community. Community is important to loving our God, as we have seen. Loving one another and loving him are linked. Okay, and don't forget, we love by giving. John 17:20-21 says this, I do not ask for these only, but also for those who will believe in me through the word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. Remember, he says, I want you to love others as you love yourself. And he's talking about us all being one. This idea of loving yourself and giving to the point where the other person becomes a part of you because you've invested yourself so deeply in that other person. Do you get it? You become one. And then loving them like you love yourself. It just makes perfect sense because you've invested so much of yourself in them. It's just like loving yourself. And he wants us to have that relationship with him and with each other. Okay? What's the fundamental building block of any community or society? It's a family, isn't it? Okay. What do we need for a family? We need a man and a woman coming together in marriage. Okay, that's an ish and an isha in Hebrew. Because I had to carry on looking at these two words, and this is quite interesting. Man or ish, right, is aleph yod shin. Woman, isha, is aleph shin hey. What does a man have that a woman doesn't have? He has a yod. See? What does a woman have that a man doesn't have? She has a hey. What does yod and hey spell? Yah. What is Yah? God. That's amazing, isn't it? Okay? So when a man and a woman come together in marriage, God or Yah is expressed in their union. That's incredible, isn't it? Now, I just couldn't help but make this note. She must truly love him because he's wearing beige shoes with a black suit on his wedding day. I don't know. Standards are slipping, aren't they? I think the world's gone to pot. But here's something else that's interesting. Remember what man is. He's aleph yod shin. Woman is aleph shin hey. Okay? If we take Yah, God, out of the equation, i.e. the yod from man and the hey from woman, so we'd have aleph shin, we're left with the following. Man is aleph shin, which is aish. Woman is aleph shin, which is aish. It's the Hebrew word for fire. Okay? So when Yehovah is not part of a marriage, we have fire mixed with fire. The explosion of two selfish human beings coming together. It's mad, that, isn't it? I just think, wow, Hebrew language is something else, isn't it? So, wow. So we don't want to take God out of our relationships, do we? Or we just end up with fire upon fire. Okay, so the name of our Elohim is shorted at times to Yah, but below is his full name as is written in Hebrew. Okay? We pronounce it Yehovah, other people pronounce it Yahweh. And God's name, Yod He Vav He, is a form of to be. It's a verb. Okay? That's what his name is, it's a verb. But pagan thinking turns him into a noun and paints him like that, to look a little bit like me dad if he put on a bit of weight. Okay? But how can you paint a verb? You can't, can you? Now bear this in mind, to be like Yehovah, you have to be a verb and not a noun. Okay? Your identity is what you do. Okay? So if you're a Canaanite, what you do is you go to church on the Sunday and you keep your God at bay, and then you go on, you spend the rest of your week doing whatever it is you want. Okay? But your identity is what you do. If you're constantly in relationship with Yehovah, okay, that defines who you are. You're his child, because the relationship exists. Okay, hold on a minute. Just exactly who are you? Have a think about it. Who are you? Okay. Are you an Israelite living a Shamar lifestyle, enjoying relationship with Yehovah and your fellow Israelites? Or are you a Canaanite who thinks it's great to go to weekly local worship centre altar, but thinks that having Yehovah to be Lord over every aspect of your life is going a bit far? Okay, maybe you think that sort of behaviour is reserved for those who are paid to be holy, or for those who've got nothing better in their sad little lives. Okay? If it's not about knowing him more and more every day, then what kind of a relationship is it? What good is it? Okay, what good is it to you or to those people around you? What good is that kind of a relationship? It's useless, isn't it? Okay, you have to be real with Yehovah as well, because he can see right through you. You can't wear a mask. Okay, so is it to be a family-centered, community-based Shamar lifestyle? Or are you the religious type? Note, With eyes that read, it becomes perfectly clear. If the Shamar lifestyle is not real and vibrant in our homes, in our family relationships, it's simply not real at all. Putting on a good show for each other a few hours a week behind stained glass windows merely allows us to feel good about ourselves, while we fail to do anything meaningful within the spheres of influence Jehovah gave us in which to deposit his footprint. The prophet did not declare how lovely are your synagogues or how lovely are your cathedrals. He declared how lovely are your tents, the places where you dwell. Okay, that's why Moshe taught us the mitzvah of Torah and the wonderful works. Taught us that the mitzvah of Torah and the wonderful works of Jehovah are to be constantly on everyone's lips, a part of every conversation when people sit at home, when they walk by the way, when they lie down, and when they rise up. That is why Moshe taught that everyone in our community is to know and have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, living, breathing relationship with Jehovah, and therefore have no dependence upon organized religion. Moshe now tells us why Jehovah does not want us to follow after local worship center system employed by the rest of the world and organized religions. It's because that system always eventually results in the absolute opposite of the holy, family-centered lifestyle Jehovah wants for his people. Okay, we'll be coming to the end of part 1 now, but we'll read a couple more slides. Observe and hear all these words which I command thee, that it may go well with thee, and with thy children after thee forever. When thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of Jehovah thy God. When Jehovah thy God shall cut off the nations from before thee, whither thou goest to possess them, and thou succeedest them, and dwellest in their land. Take heed to thyself that thou be not snared by following them, after that they be destroyed from before thee, and that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. It's a great verse to quote to anybody who thinks that doing Easter and Christmas is a good idea. Thou shalt not do so unto Jehovah thy God, for every abomination to Jehovah which he hateth have they done unto their gods. For even their sons and their daughters they have burnt in the fire to their gods. What thing soever I command you, observe to do it. Thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish from it. Okay, and I ask the question here, is Moshe trying to make a connection between idolatrous practices and changing the Torah? Well, to me it's quite clear. Yes, he is. He definitely is. That is exactly what he is saying. Moshe was totally, absolutely making a connection between idolatrous practices and changing the Torah. Changing the Torah is idolatry, and we definitely don't want to be doing any of that nonsense, do we? Okay, man functions in two realms, his intellect and his emotions. These final verses in Deuteronomy 12 were intended to teach the Israelites how to deal with their ever-present emotions by living with uncorrupted Torah truths. Without these truths, they would eventually follow some erroneous emotional feeling. Okay, that's what happens when we abandon the truth of Torah. And you end up with nonsense like the prosperity gospel and live your best life now and God wants us to be rich. Okay? People are just completely giving themselves over to their emotions. You're supposed to submit your emotions to Jehovah. The Torah must never be altered. Isn't this what Yeshua said when he said, do not think that I came to abolish the Torah or the prophets. Did not come to abolish, which means to take away from, but to fulfill, to fill up with meaning. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or tittle will by no means pass from the Torah till all is fulfilled. Only by growing in our understanding of absolute biblical truths will we be able to discern between what feels right and what actually is right. Our emotions should not dictate our actions. Okay, Deuteronomy 12:8 says this, you shall not all do, as we are doing here today, every man according to what is right in his own eyes. There's a danger in following our own way. Proverbs 14:12 says, there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Okay, Jeremiah 17:9 says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? So all the world that says, just follow your heart, man, follow your heart. It's drivel, because the scriptures say the heart is deceitful above all things. So don't do that. Just worth a second look for those who proclaim to follow Jehovah is this one. Proverbs 14:12. There's a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. Yeah, we do the Torah, but we don't do that bit there, because what we reckon is that's not. There is a way that seems right to a man, but the end leads to death. Okay, some things seem like such a good idea from man's perspective. What we really need to do is to see things from Jehovah's perspective. Okay, in part 2 we'll be looking at how to treat the poor. And I put this up, the Humanist Manifesto, because I just want to get the point across that there's so many people out there. I know of a text I received from Joe the other day. How can God do this, and how can he? And this is somebody sitting in judgment of the Lord. This is people looking from man's perspective, looking through man's eyes, thinking they've got all the answers. Hang on a minute. That's really dangerous stuff. There's a way that seems right to a man, but the end thereof leads to death. We've got a world full of people. They're writing manifestos that completely negate the Torah of the Almighty. And they think they're so elevated and lofty and so above. And they dress it all up as this is the way forward. It's not. It's the way that leads to death. Okay, Solomon also spoke about following your heart, and in his wisdom came back around to the truthful conclusion. Ecclesiastes 11:9. 13 and 14. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, but know that for all these Elohim will bring you into judgment. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Jehovah and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. Okay, and then it ends like this. For Jehovah will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. Makes you think, doesn't it? Or at least it should. Okay, and that's the end of part 1.